You are not going to see this anywhere else in any other media, not in Britain, not around the world, not even on a different planet. Why did I say that? King Charles has lied in order to defend his brother Prince Andrew. Now, I understand that people will lie to defend their family, and I understand why people do that. But you have to remember that this is a serious country, the United Kingdom is, or at least it should be, and there ought to be a requirement of the royal family to behave in a certain way. In this video, I'm going to explain some of the garbage that you have been force-fed from the media and tell you the truth about this situation. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this really, really important video. Please do share it. Also, we're making a major financial push for the Patriot Fund in the run-up to Christmas. Please do donate below. Okay, so I want to go through the various things that have happened to Prince Andrew. First of all, obviously he has a knighthood in the Order of the Garter. Now, many of you will think of a knighthood as like Sir Elton John. He's what's called a knight bachelor. That is to say that whilst he's been given the Sir or the knighthood, he's not a member of any particular order. Dame Judi Dench is a DBE. She's a Dame of the British Empire. Now, that's what the majority of knights and dames are. But there are a small number of people who are things like Knights of the Order of the Garter and Knights of the Royal Victorian Order. And in fact, in the case of Prince Andrew, he was both of those things. Now, those orders can throw you out if you behave in an unacceptable way. And so that is easy. He's left them voluntarily, and that's fine. Now, when it comes to the peerage, there are three peerages. First one is the Dukedom of York, which we all know about. Then he's also the Earl of Inverness, and he's also Baron Killy Lee or something. Okay, forgive me on the pronunciation. But basically what normally happens is, with royal dukes, they get a dukedom in England, an earldom in Scotland, and a barony in Northern Ireland. There are some of them who are made viscounts in Wales, but that varies from person to person. Now, what I will say to you is very simply this. Point number one, if you no longer have a seat in the House of Lords, which Prince Andrew does not use, or he didn't take up, or whatever, he has been introduced in the House of Lords, by the way, as Duke of York, but it obviously hasn't gone since the change in the rules of the hereditary peerage. So those have gone. So you haven't got your seat in the House of Lords, fine. Okay, so the next thing is he's not using the title for any court circulars. So if he's not using the title and he's not sitting in the House of Lords, then I think we can accept that the dukedom, the earldom and the barony have kind of gone. I will say, obviously, lots of people say that you need to have an Act of Parliament to remove a peerage, and that is true. Always remember what Tony Blair did. He removed the voting and speaking rights of hereditary peers. He didn't abolish them completely because it would have required one Act of Parliament for every single hereditary peer he wanted, which is why they wander around, want to get rid of, which is why they wander around still using their titles, and why Viscount Monckton, who people have a go at, is still a member of the House of Lords. He's just non-sitting, non-voting and non-speaking. Got it? Okay. Then we come on to where I think the king has actually lied. And it's related to Royal Lodge. Now, around the world, Prince Andrew used to do all of these trade missions, but actually in reality, he was somebody who took the mick massively. And when I say took the mick massively, what I mean is that he took money from all sorts of credulous sources, including the Chinese undercover service or secret service or whatever they're called. Basically, their equivalents of MI5 and MI6, which I think is wholly, wholly unacceptable. Similarly, he stopped a trade mission halfway through so he could fly to Baku in Azerbaijan. We don't know what he was doing with Haydar Aliyev, but one thing I will say to you was at the time, the Azeri government was paying British politicians and indeed anybody who'd listen because they wanted to persuade the British government to take no action when they invaded Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh, which is Armenian territory, or at least it was up until about a year ago, I think it was. So it may well be that Prince Andrew took money from Azerbaijan in order to support the invasion of Armenia. And when I say support, do nothing. And of course, the other thing that Azerbaijan did was ensured that BP had the oil contracts. So he's got all this money, he's done all these things, he's gone round the world, and he's got this money in order to rent Royal Lodge. Now, here is the thing. He was given by the Crown Estate a 99-year lease on Royal Lodge, and they're saying they can't get rid of him. And the King's going, you see, I can't get rid of him. He has a lease. That is true, but it's deeply, deeply, deeply misleading. Okay, so let me tell you something. You can rent a property on the Royal Windsor Estate. If you speak to the Crown Estate, they'll merrily rent it to you, because what happens is, in exchange for the sovereign grant, the sovereign gives over the Crown Estate to the taxpayer. So they'll rent you anything you want. You think, oh my God, can I rent property behind the cordon at Windsor Castle? Yes, you can. Great, I'd love to live there. No. You can't live there. You can't even visit it. You can only live there and you can only visit if you have a security pass to get through the gate. Do you see where I'm going with this? So, what happens to Prince Andrew if you were to say to him, you've got a lease on Royal Lodge, no problem with that, but you can't come onto my estate because I've deactivated your security pass. That means in practice, he wouldn't be able to go to it and he would have to leave. Anyway, this is precisely what Prince William did to Prince Harry. Don't take the mick out of me or I'll just remove your security credentials. And I'm sure that Prince William is now behind this new thing on Prince Andrew. And I'll tell you the reason I know that. I had a very good friend of mine who was a victim of child abuse. That's not necessarily important, but he hit the bottle later in life and he was living on the royal estate, what I call Frogmore Village. It's not called Frogmore Village, but it's the bit, if you know it, in between the castle and Old Windsor, near Datchet, and obviously it's behind the security cordon. He got absolutely languid one night and he drove his car through the gate and crashed somewhere near the Windsor Farm Shop. Now, as you can imagine, that caused a major security incident. Now, he was not thrown out of his home, which he got as a result of his dad being I think, a fireman at Windsor Castle. He didn't get thrown out of his home. But what they did was they said, because you've crashed a car and run off, and because you're drunk or driving on the estate, we're going to take away your security credentials. So whilst he still had his bedroom, it was still there, still had all of his clothes in, still had all the stuff in, but he was never, ever allowed to visit. So when King Charles, who is a weak man rather than an evil man, and sometimes a little bit deluded, when he says there's nothing he can do, there are things he could do. Next, when he says there's nothing he can do about the situation of Prince Andrew, right, what you have to remember is, and I'm sorry to get technical, but I think people appreciate this level of knowledge. If there is only one princedom that is a peerage, got it? There's only one princedom that is a member of the House of Lords, and that's the Princedom of Wales. Every other princedom or princess is actually just a courtesy title. Now, courtesy titles can be altered by issuance of letters patent, and that has happened recently. And I'll tell you why. So what they used to do was, they used to say, all children of the monarch are princes and princesses. Got it. And then they said, all grandchildren of the monarch are princes and princesses, as long as it's by the male line. So if you think about that, you've got Queen Elizabeth II, you've got Prince Charles, you've got Prince Andrew, you've got Prince Edward, you've got you've got Royal Princess Anne, and Princess Anne's children are not princes and princesses. Similarly, when Harry and Meghan had their first child, he was not a prince, and their first daughter was not a princess until the Queen died. And then, of course, they became the grandchildren, but they were the great-grandchildren. But what am I leading to here? Well, a change was made. I don't imagine you'll particularly care about this, but I'll tell you nonetheless, this is what happened. It was decided by Queen Elizabeth II that nobody should ever be British monarch who is not royal. And that was about to happen. Because what was about to happen was, she was the monarch, Prince Charles had the courtesy title, Prince William has a courtesy title, but George was not actually a royal. He wasn't a prince. So before he was born, it was altered. So when it's the heir to the thrones, heir to the thrones, heir to the thrones, heir to the throne, then they all get it as well. Now, why is that relevant? Well, Queen Elizabeth altered the letters patent, or it altered the warrant to say that that she was going to make Lilibet, George, and indeed Louis princes and princesses, and she can just do it with the stroke of a pen. Prince Charles can now, we always call him King Prince Charles, don't we? Longest serving ever Prince of Wales. He could now put out the letters patent in the court circular, and he could say, right, I am now going to specifically remove this from Prince Andrew. So now think about this, and I know it's a long-winded way of saying it, but now you can get him out of Royal Lodge and you can get the title of Prince from him. But here is the next thing that I want to say is so important. There are going to be loads of people in the comment section who prejudge Prince Andrew. I accept that the evidence looks extremely bleak for him, but I've seen situations in the past where, and I've sat on five juries, I've seen situations in the past where it sounds like the case is completely hopeless, but actually the defence comes up with evidence that completely changes your mind. Now, you can argue with me all day, I don't know. My argument against Prince Andrew is actually completely different to what many people's argument is. I can't prejudge what he did and what he didn't do. I do know that the age of consent in the UK is 16 and Virginia Giuffre, or whatever her name was 17. But okay, here's what his sins are. Sin number one, do not cooperate with the investigation by the FBI. Sin number two, pay £12 million in compensation. Let's just divide those out for a moment. I don't believe that anybody should be sitting in the British government, anybody who should be sitting in the British Parliament, anybody who should retain the rank, style and title of a British member of the royal family who is not willing to cooperate with a legitimate investigation by a democratic government that is allied to the United Kingdom. I believe that Prince Andrew should have got on the plane to the United States of America and fought the allegations, or indeed got on the plane and pleaded guilty to the criminality. And so for me, I was about to say it doesn't matter to me whether he's guilty or not. That would be a stupid thing to say, wouldn't it? What I'm saying to you is, it doesn't matter whether he's guilty or not in the context of the fact he refused to cooperate with the investigation. This is not like sending him to Yemen. This is the FBI in the United States of America. And remember, we can all go, oh, the FBI's done this, the FBI's done that. Remember, the FBI have a dodgy investigation of Donald Trump and everybody loses their shit completely. That's what happens in a democratic country. They're not more generally corrupt, and the situation was relatively quickly resolved by Donald Trump. So he should have done that. Now let's go on to our next sins. It doesn't look good, let's be clear. I've said I wouldn't predetermine it. It doesn't look good that when Virginia is going to make her allegation against Prince Andrew, he doesn't email Epstein going, oh my God, who is this woman? Never heard of her. God, what's that photo? What a load of old rubbish. He goes, we're in this together. Let's play again soon. Ugh. Now, that suggests that he did know who she was. But once again, I'm not going to predetermine or prejudge the case. What he's actually doing is he's saying, let's work together to beat her, which I think is sin number three. Sin number four, which dovetails on to number three, is attempting to get her background checked by the police. That is completely outrageous. I worked in the Royal Palace. Admittedly, it was Westminster for the House of Commons. But I cannot impress on you enough that we would never have gone to the police and asked them to personally defend us. They were there to secure the building, to look after things like counterintelligence, to ensure that there were no terrorist attacks and things like that. The suggestion that they worked for us in the sense that they were our boot boys who could just attempt to discredit our opponents, that was never, it wasn't discussed. It was no one even thought of it. We assumed, to the extent we ever thought about it, we assumed that we would be arrested if we did anything like that, and rightly so. So you've then got that offence, haven't you? And then you've got the whole dishonesty about Newsnight when he came on and lied about the whole thing. And there's also the next thing, which is it just feels like he feels like he's the victim. And I think the reason he feels like he's the victim is because it's genuine. I think that he is so deluded, that he is so full of himself, that he's so entitled, that he's incapable of recognising the wrong that he has done. He has done a great deal of wrong. I was watching The Rest Is Politics, by the way, with Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell. And Alistair Campbell made a good point. He often does, by the way, even though I don't politically agree with him. He said, look, one thing that I've never believed is just because you're rich, you're a good person. And I think that's true. You know, Epstein was clearly an absolute wrong-un. And the fact that you care more, and we definitely know he's guilty of this, the fact that you care more about money than you do about the dignity of your brother's office and your mother's office, even if you don't care about the crimes that Epstein committed. Just have a modicum of decency and support your country and your family. I would have hoped, and I would know, that if it was my brothers, they'd be bothered about the victims as well. But even if you are so selfish, just at least look after your own people. So where are we up to? Well, I think that Royal Lodge will be resolved. Buckingham Palace has said in the past 20 minutes that they are now gravely concerned about this situation. And that's before Virginia Giuffre's autobiography comes out. And she says that Prince Andrew attempted to hire bots in order to discredit her. And he's trying to get the police to discredit as well. It really is the sort of thing that you would expect from, John Palmer, Goldfinger, the guy who did the Brinks-Mac Melt. The sort of people who are criminal gangs, drug dealers, armed robbers. That is the sort of people that you would expect to do that. So I think Royal Lodge is gone. I think also he will lose the title of Prince. But I believe now that has become irrelevant. I believe the failure of Prince Andrew and the failure of the royal family to act has made it rather more serious. Because conspiracy to cause malfeasance in public office is a serious criminal offence. Asking the police to use their powers to discredit somebody that you've raped in order to disguise it is pretty bad. And you will do bird for that. You will go to prison. I think also there will now be questions asked about his money. Where did it come from? Was he bribed as a UK trade envoy? If he was bribed as a UK trade envoy, he's going to prison. If now it's proved that there's a second alleger who says that he behaved improperly with her, if she proves her case, he's going to prison. He may well now be extradited, because the other problem is the Americans have desperately tried to cover up the crimes of Epstein, largely because of Bill Clinton's involvement. But now that the British are starting to act, it's not credible for the FBI to ignore this to the extent that they've ignored it anymore. And if you get into trouble in America, you'll get into very serious trouble. I think the end of this is, I believe that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is going to jail. I think he will be lucky to dodge an extradition to the United States of America. I believe the malfeasance in public office, the Metropolitan Police won't want this because he's a member of the royal family, but what can you do now? And now, I guarantee you, every single investigative journalist in the world is looking at his finances and how on earth he pays for all of this lifestyle off the money he got off his mother, which was virtually nothing, by the way. A lot by our standards, but virtually nothing by their standards. He is absolutely screwed. But more importantly, we've got to look at this deputy press secretary in Buckingham Palace, because that guy was told that Prince Andrew had got his personal protection officer to investigate Virginia Giuffre. And my final comment is this. It is not uncommon in these very serious cases for people to attempt to discredit the victim. The family of Virginia Giuffre, I've got to get that name right, I apologise for the mispronunciation. They've said she didn't have a criminal record. Prince Andrew believed she did. Let me be very clear with you. Just because you've been done for drink driving, just because you shoplifted as a teenager, doesn't mean that you're not a victim of what is a very serious piece of criminality. And I think that anybody with any sanity would know that you shouldn't be treated any differently than anybody else. If you're a victim, you're a victim. But moreover, people in that position suffer serious and long-term psychological damage. And so that does cause some level of criminality. So I'm going to say to you, even if she has been convicted of a criminal offence, that should have absolutely no impact whatsoever, just as the fact that he is the brother of the king should have no impact for him. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do donate to Patriot Fund. We want a big push before Christmas, and I want to give you some good news. The guy that Sussex police attempted to kill by attempting to prosecute him for an Islamophobic hate crime, in the end we didn't have to spend any legal fees on him, but I'll tell you what we did do. He got out of the psychiatric ward and the Patriot Fund gave him £100 to go for dinner with his friends just to try and chill out. I'm really glad, and it's little grants like that that we can do. He was about to go into a box, but our interference and our harassment of the Sussex police saved him, and then he got to go out for a couple of KFC family buckets with his relatives, and I'm absolutely delighted about that. Please do make your small donations below. Until next time, goodbye.